William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
And welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis. And now Patti is so prompt about sending us a text message that she's running late. So here's her message today. I'm running late, actually. Big surprise. Like, she has to text us that she's running late. I'm running late, actually, but hope to be there before Jim Hightower. She didn't make it. So I think she's sent at 12:48. She is prompt. She sends that message promptly between 12:46 and 12:48 every single week since 2000 for for 17 years.
Right.
For 17 years. Anyway, our guest today is Lorie, and in walks Patti. So she didn't hear that. We just read your text message. I thought it was precious.
Oh, thank you.
So. Anyway, our guest is Lorie Burch. She's running for Congress. Welcome back, Lorie.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
And so you're running for Congress.
I am.
How did that happen? I'm laughing because, it's like it's becoming normal for our guests to then decide to run for Congress. Right. Or
why don't we start with Lorie?
And they've been successful. They have a good election.
Yeah, this is good luck.
That's good to know.
Right, we're the booty. You can rub our bellies.
Excellent. I'll do that again.
But why don't we start with tell us? Lorie is an attorney. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your practice. How long you've been practicing? What do you specialize in?
Sure, absolutely. So I am a local kid, graduate of Plano Senior High, and a local attorney. I did go off to law school in Washington, D.C. at George Washington, and decided after, it's a long story, it's very interesting though, I'm fascinated by my biography, but decided to move back after my stepfather, who is just such a great man in our family, moved back to Dallas and start my own law practice, and I focused exclusively on the area of wills, trust, powers of attorney, and probate, and one of the reasons that I decided to do that was specifically for the LGBT community and to help provide our families and couples with legal protections that the law didn't currently provide and to some extent still does not provide, and to navigate those legal channels. And
to some extent?
Yeah.
The Texas Supreme Court says we have no rights. That, we were ordered to issue marriage licenses, but other than that, they don't mean anything.
According to the Texas Supreme Court, we have what Justice Ginsburg referred to as skim milk marriage. So, we'll see.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have skim milk marriage. Do you?
No, I have like a soy milk marriage. Just
I
special
have
and unique.
Full 100% thick cow's milk marriage.
See, that's what I think I have.
Yeah, that's
too.
what I think I have. Which, by the way, congratulations, Lorie, on your recent nuptials.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's been just over a month, and they said that it wouldn't last, but we're showing them.
Well, you're running for Congress. You want it to be.
One.
You don't want to be accused of your living together.
Right. Yes.
Shack it up.
Absolutely. I want to be the picture perfect traditional American family. So.
Right.
And you're going to need to update your website because it still says you're engaged.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll add that to 101 things I have to do.
To-do list. Please share your wedding story. I thought this was great.
Sure.
You'll never guess where she got married.
Well, a lot of people who know me would guess, but
I don't guess this.
we got married at Graceland, of course.
Graceland.
At Graceland. There's a little chapel next to the house. And
so you kind of like Elvis just a little bit?
Just mildly fanatic.
Is it you or Kimberly?
It's me.
Okay.
It's all me. My entire life, my entire being is I don't feel middle of the road on anything. If I love something, if I'm passionate about something, I am all in.
You're all in.
And I can't think of a better place than to get married and celebrate that than with the king.
So where at Graceland do you get married? Is there?
It's called the Chapel in the Woods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they were just like, yeah, come on, or were they like,
Well-
oh, wait a minute?
Well, it was interesting because as much as I've been involved in being on the advocacy side for our community and really all vulnerable and marginalized communities, when it came to myself, it never even dawned on me, even though I've known for years of going to Graceland and to Memphis that they have this chapel, that could be something that we could do. And Kim was actually the one who mentioned it, and I said, well, they do, but oh my gosh, that's the Deep South. And so we called up the event coordinator that Kim had been corresponding with, and Kim, not a lot of people believe this, but is way more assertive than I am. And so we've got her on speaker, and she just came right out at it. She said, now look, we're a same-sex couple, and we want to make sure that that's not just something that's merely tolerated on our wedding day. How is that? And the event coordinator on the other end said, oh my gosh, of course, that's great. We just had you guys get married during Elvis Week. And it was just this huge relief that
Absolutely.
that we're going to be able to have the kind of wedding that we want, and not have to factor in how are people going to feel about
You know,
that.
that's one thing in the whole debate about will your florist be offended by serving you. To hell with that florist who doesn't. There are other florists. I think you can find a gay florist out there to get you flowers in most places, especially if you're in a city or, you know, a major suburb. I like Kim's approach because you don't want to be tolerated. I can't stand being tolerated. I'd rather have somebody just be out there and tell me, I'd really rather not do it. Great, I'll give my money elsewhere. And I love that your wedding was there because I think our weddings should be fun.
Right.
Right, and I love the point that, you know, you all did your homework. That's been me and Danny Staples since from get-go, especially since we've had a kid. And, you know, I've been told, you know, I shouldn't have to have gone up to the schools before we enrolled her to talk with the principal. No, I don't. I shouldn't have to, but I do. You know, you have to do your homework because, like you said, you don't want to just be tolerated.
Well, and when Gabrielle gets older, when she's in her generation are having kids, she's going to have some peers that will go into schools to check their kids in, and they won't have to ask. They won't have to do
I hope
that
that's
homework.
the case. Right.
You know, I mean, that's why we're doing this now.
Exactly.
That's why we've always been doing
Exactly.
this. Because one day it won't be a big deal.
Right.
You know.
You hope it won't. But yeah, I mean, it's we can talk all day long about the way things should or shouldn't be, but you know, it is important, and I think we were talking about this earlier about the importance of being visible and being authentic. And you know, the Lorie 15, 20 years ago would not have been able to do that. Would not have been able to run for Congress. Would not have been able to lead organizations and be a voice. But through my journey and finding that there's been a lot more doors and hearts that I've been able to open by coming into my own, by being who I am, that it's really my responsibility to continue to have that visibility and that voice for the Lories of 15 years ago who aren't at that point. But not only that, but for those who came before me that had to break down so many more barriers that I could never even fathom. And so I see it as a responsibility, and by asking those questions, then you are helping create those conversations and that visibility.
And it's possible that same-sex couple that married before you during Elvis Week or another couple before that didn't get that enthusiastic response. And that's one of the reasons I think our weddings need to be fun, because their reaction was, oh my God, yes, we just had one. The reaction was, they were so much fun. Great, now we're going to have a lesbian couple get married here.
Right, and they actually added to their wedding blog about having same-sex weddings.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's how you change.
Yeah,
That's how you create the change.
Right. You know, and it takes some courage to be able to get on the phone and ask those questions. You know, with my wedding, I know one of the things that we did was we were talking to the caterer, and one of her questions that she asked me, I said, well, which one's easier as far as it had to do with serving? She said, which one's easier? She said, I love you. And I know the next time they cater a same-sex wedding, they might wrongly be thinking, well, it's a pleasure dealing with this gay couple. Of course we'll do that one, as opposed to, sure, we'll do it.
Right.
Then it becomes, of course, and then it becomes, we're really looking forward to the next one. But that's a step, just like with you and Danny going to the school and talking to the teachers. I know you followed that up with good parental interference and everything. No, but by going to the school and being a good parent.
Absolutely.
And now they'll look forward to having same-sex couples who are the parents, because they know they're concerned parents. So sometimes it takes a little bit of courage to do that, but it's an important thing to do.
Now, you did get married in Tennessee. How was it, aside from the actual wedding, the party, how was it actually going to get your marriage license?
Right. Well, it's an interesting political climate, putting it mildly, and Tennessee actually had just a few months prior, or a month prior to the wedding, had passed a law, and the governor had signed it, and really not knowing what it's getting at, but really not knowing how it's going to be interpreted, that something along the lines of that the government can interpret laws within their traditional meaning. Mm-hmm. So a little vague. And
very
so
vague.
again, tried to do my homework ahead of time and reached out to their equivalent equality state organization and emailed somebody there and just said, look, we've been planning this. We have way more guests than we ever thought would. We're trying to keep it small. We're coming. What gives? And the response back was that, well, in Shelby County, I don't really imagine that you'll have a problem. But I'll tell you, I was nervous. Kim and I went there with we have a 12 and a 7-year-old daughters, and I was really nervous sitting there, but I had to laugh because being an attorney and dealing with so many governmental bureaucracies, I think that it was just kind of a rubber stamp. I wasn't necessarily real excited, and I have a feeling that we were not treated any better or any worse than anybody else who would go. And that's what equality is, right? We're not.
It is.
People say we're looking for special treatment. Heck no. I just want to be treated like any other schmuck that showed up.
Right.
And that is how we were
Sign
treated
here,
by Shelby County.
next.
So,
that was the whole point of Kim, whatever her name was, in Kentucky. It's not a matter of, I don't want you to endorse, I don't want you to be delighted. I just want you to do your job.
Give me when you get into all these businesses, and it's so convoluted because I'm a small business owner, and I don't care the people that come in front of me, if I agree with their beliefs or I condone their beliefs, because I'm not a religious organization. When it comes to a religious organization, yes, that makes sense. But anything outside of that, to try and say that I can inject my personal beliefs or my personal religious beliefs on that. And it's one thing that I was really excited during that time, because I believe putting a positive focus on things rather than we give so much energy to the negative. And then if you believe in the law of attraction, you just make it bigger and you make it worse. And the North Texas GLBT Chamber of Commerce, one of the things that we talked about and they developed was the We Zone program, where we welcome everybody, so that businesses that want to actually visibly say, we welcome everybody, let's reach out to them so they can start promoting their businesses in such a way and not worry about the businesses that are going to try and use this pretext for discrimination to not allow people to use their services.
And I still want to know who the cake bakers are who don't want to bake for us, because I really don't want to eat something that was baked by somebody who objects to me.
Right.
It's...
And I don't get it either about, like, if you get a birthday cake from a baker, they're not participating in your birthday.
Right.
I've never known anyone to think even go there.
Right.
That's out of the realm. So, how are they participating in anyone's wedding?
Yeah.
Right.
If they just bake a cake? I don't know.
If I draft a will and somebody's giving all their money to focus on the family, I'm not giving all the money to focus on the family. So who am I to do that? The reality is the money that they're paying to me, and if you know anything about my community involvement, you know where their money is going, and it's infused back into our community and back towards fighting for equality for all people. So I don't get it. It's a pretext, it's a distraction, it is a reaction to the progress that the community has made, and we just got to stay vigilant and visible.
Right after Equality or the non-discrimination ordinance passed in your city, Prestonwood Baptist Church had a little rally and meeting about how they could get it repealed. And so afterwards I went to City Hall because your mayor had a press conference, and nobody was asking questions, and I'm usually not pushy at a press conference at all. If I need to talk to somebody, I'm really not.
Right. True?
Yeah.
The
TV people need to get on the air, and they need to have their question on the air, and I can always talk to the person afterwards. So nobody was asking a question, so I said, well, I'll ask. I said, over at the Klan rally across town, it seemed like what they really were concerned with was which florists are going to be offended by catering our weddings. I said to the mayor, do you have a list of your homophobic florists here in town? And he just looked at me. He gave a great answer about the reason we passed this ordinance is because people in Plano want a non-discrimination policy. We don't discriminate. And so afterwards he came up to me. He said, you don't ask questions like other reporters. I said, I know. He said, you crack me up. But florists don't discriminate. Yes, there are the occasional ones that get into the news, but a florist is happy to sell you flowers. They're not particularly participating in your wedding, just like a cake baker isn't. That cake baker might not stock the cake toppers that you put on the cake with 2 grooms or 2 brides. Well, my cake baker was gay, and he didn't have the toppings that we wanted. We went out and got our own. What's the big deal? I mean, that...
There's called online shopping, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, along the lines of the Equal Rights Ordinance for my hometown of Plano, I was there that night, and I spoke in favor of it, of course. And there was a huge surge of folks that were coming out to speak against it. And what's interesting is there's just such a natural hypocrisy in the argument, because half of them were saying there is no problem, why are we doing this, and the other half were saying that, well, you can't force me to do business with people that violate my religious principles. So which is it, really? But the bigger point for me that night, and that probably was a little bit of a spark leading me to where I am now, is that's my hometown. And when I moved to Plano, I did not have the easiest transition. I don't think we really used these terms, but I was bullied in school. I had to change buses and classes because of how I was treated differently, and it wasn't the home that I've made for myself. And living in Plano now, it's such a different environment. I mean, I love it. You could have to drag me kicking and screaming, but sitting there that night and not so much listening to the people that came out, but listening to the mayor and listening to other city council members who they were not going to budge. They were passing this thing. You can speak all day long, and I was just thinking, this is where I went to high school. This is my home. And so many, particularly in our community, have said, how can you live there? How can you live south of LBJ or Loop 12? And that night, it's like, this is why we're not the community that some people perceive that we are. And it was really seeing how representatives, how elected officials can really make a difference and change a community.
And we're going to talk about that right after the break. We're talking to Lorie Burch. She's running for Congress District 3.
Yes.
And which is held by redistricting, yes, but held by Sam Johnson right now. We're going to talk about it because that has everything to do with how you think you can win in that district. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and we'll be right back.
This is Rollins Gilliland, and I'm listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3, and darn glad to be doing it.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and our guest is Lorie Burch. Lorie is running for Congress District 3, which is held by Sam Johnson. He's had that seat since 1993, I believe, and is retiring. Patti, you just wanted to say something about the Plano
I just want to acknowledge that when we talk about the Plano ordinance, while it does have enormous protections in terms of employment, public accommodations, and housing, it really sells the trans community short. And I just want to acknowledge that we recognize that.
That is correct. There's a lot more work that can be done. The hope is now, though, is still a fight getting the basis and foundation of the ordinance from being repealed, but certainly could go much further in having a lot more heart and teeth to it.
Definitely.
You know, and it's a start, and hopefully it'll be strengthened. But Lorie, you're saying that's not real likely right now.
Who knows?
Okay.
I'm a hopeless optimist.
Okay.
So I also am more realistic about time. You know, we get so hung up on what looks like in the immediate, and I'm a bigger picture person. I look over the course of human history, American history, and we've always, you know, what did Martin Luther King say? That the arc of the moral universe is long, but it always bends towards justice.
Mm-hmm.
So, what prompted you to run for political office?
Well, if we had a couple hours, I could really flesh out that answer. But to try and put that into a nutshell, I didn't necessarily think that I would run for political office, but it's kind of a coming out story. Now that I am, I kind of always knew I would, I guess. And but I've always wanted to make a difference. I've always tried to dedicate my career, my schooling, my advocacy, my volunteerism towards working for those more vulnerable or who are marginalized. Whether it's been indigent criminal defendants when I was in D.C. and worked as an investigator with the Public Defender Service, to being with the American Businesswomen's Association advocating for equality and opportunities for women in business, education, and leadership. And then, of course, within my business, really dealing with so many folks, elderly, aging, folks with disability, just trying to take care of themselves, take care of their families, and how they balance all of that. To then, of course, the work that I've done in the LGBT community, which sometimes people look at that as such a single issue, but it touches so much. It has to do with education and safety in school, healthcare, employment, housing. It touches on so many different things that cross so many different segments of our community. Over the last few years, I've just become more and more disillusioned with really two things. One, how our elected officials just continue the cycle of being representative, not of the people, but of special interests and big money. And then at the same time, it's trickled down into our own communities and how we communicate and treat one another. And there's just an utter lack of civility for someone who's just slightly different than your viewpoint. And it was just this coming to terms with, you look at how the last election cycle played out, and I believe that the people that I know and the people of this country are hungry for representatives who are not part of this cookie-cutter traditional political process against the status quo and establishment. And it seems to me it's an opportunity to have more people that can really step in and try and shake things up, because the way that we're going right now is our democracy is truly at risk if we continue down the cycle. And you can either put blinders on it, and I don't blame people who do. I'm not doing this because I think it looks fun and I want to play a part of it, but I just feel like I have always believed strongly in standing on the right side of history. And I just got married. I've got 2 kids, and I want to be able to tell them and our grandkids that when we saw this time, this moment in history, when our leaders were not living up to their democratic ideals and we were divided as a nation, as a community, that I did something.
Well, you know, it is timing too. I think you have the big 2 factor, I guess. The 2018 cycle looks like Republicans are incredibly vulnerable. Mm-hmm. If there's going to be a sweep, typically, historically, there is a sweep after at this point in a president's term.
Except for one who's so incredibly popular, like our current president.
Oh, sure, yeah. He's at a whopping 36% approval today. But then the other side of that is that it's an open seat. So the opportunity just doubled.
Those are the 2 reasons why in Lorie's world I would love to just take more time and really put some thought and strategy and pieces in place but this is just too much of an opportunity to turn down, where we're going to have an open seat for the first time in nearly 3 decades, and the midterms are an opportunity to shake things up. And my focus is not who is in any sort of position now, who's the president, who are other candidates. It's really about the fact that what the foundation of our democracy and our Constitution is about, and that is a balance of power. So even if you like the president, that doesn't mean that the House and the Senate should not have some balance and other viewpoints and other voices. That's how this works. It's not trying to lead everybody to the same sort of conclusion and platform and mentality, because that's not the reality of our country, and that's certainly not the heart of what a democracy is about.
What's your time schedule? You've already filed federal paperwork, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you don't get on the Texas ballot until when?
That's right now. The way you get on the Texas ballot, that is in the fall. Everything has to be finalized. The candidates have to be official and everything towards the November, December deadlines. So right now, you can either pay to be on the ballot or you can sign a petition. So if there's anybody out there listening that is in Collin County, please feel to reach out to me and sign my petition, so I don't have to pay money to get on the ballot.
Right.
So you're filing in December to be on the March ballot
For the primary is in March. Yes.
And you've got an interesting situation there, because most of Collin County, the Democrats I know vote in the Republican primary because there are no Democrats. So you've got to convince people don't vote in the Republican, because you can't vote both.
Right. Well, I can tell you,
come over and vote in the Democratic primary so you can vote for me.
I've been a Collin County voter my entire voting life, because that's always been where I've registered and where I've lived. And I can tell you one reason why that is. I mean, I've never done that, but the reason why that is because there's not always any choices.
Right.
On the
like if you're going to choose your leaders, you have to go vote in the Republican,
from
because it's all
one to
Republican.
none. I mean, it has been uncontested, which actually gets to one of the centerpieces of what I'm most passionate about, and that is getting out the vote. And it's, nobody wants to encourage the folks that turn out, but it's not that we're a red area or a blue area. We're a non-voting area, and that's Texas at large. I mean, that's the country at large, but Texas is one of the worst at turnout.
No, it's in the last election the worst.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is terrible. You have, I believe, 5 people right now who have announced an intention to run for that seat. One of them who's getting his name out the most, just because of his name, is Sam Johnson. Now, Sam Johnson, the current congressman, is a Republican. This Sam Johnson is running on the Democratic ticket.
Yes. Which, by the way, is a great opportunity to announce that tomorrow I'm going down to the Collin County Courthouse, and I'll be filing a name change to Ann Richards.
Right.
Love that.
You can do several. You can do.
I'll see your Sam Johnson. I'll always see one Ann Richards. No, it's a cute story. It's a fun story. I've had the opportunity to meet him. He's a great guy. I'm sure that he at some point would like to get past the name and really get to the substance of who he is and what he's about. But it's an interesting dynamic. Who knows how that's going to play? That's not my problem. That's his problem. I'm focused on Lorie Burch and not anybody else.
Yeah, that's a tough one, though, because how many people voted for Governor George Bush because they thought they were voting for his father? Polls said a lot, at least as much, to get him elected over Ann Richards.
These are the same people that, you mean on the Democratic side?
No, just in the general election. This is the
same people who voted for Trump then, because by the time Ann Richards was running, George H.W. Bush was president of the United States. So, and then afterward, when in '94, why would he go backward?
Because he wasn't in office.
I know, but why would he be president and then come back and be governor?
Why would he go backwards?
That's what their thinking is.
Because he needed a job.
Right.
Yeah.
David's got to answer for it.
We're just chasing explanations.
Why would Sam Johnson be suddenly running as a Democrat? Of course he wouldn't, but that's the
probably
thing about name recognition.
60 years age difference.
One of the things that will be different in Collin County this year is a whole bunch of new people have moved in from California, from one of the most liberal counties in California. Does that figure into your plan, your strategy?
Absolutely. A lot of the new voters, and it's been a part of my business strategy because a huge segment of my client base is in the Collin County area, and so it's always great to get newcomers. That's one of the top reasons to get your will updated, and so there's definitely an influx there, and already have some connections and contacts there. But yeah, definitely, because you want to get new people to the area engaged and registered and out to vote, and realize that whether it's a municipal or state election or for a federal seat, it all touches our daily lives, and it's important who we represent and who we choose.
So which part of Collin County is not in your district?
There's a
it's
little,
easier to say which is
right.
not.
Well, with the insane gerrymandering that we have going on, and there's redistricting being proposed as we speak, so who knows how it'll actually shake out. But it's a little sliver of Collin County that's not in the district. I believe sections of Wiley. It's this little like southern tip.
So you go all the way up to the northern border of Collin County?
Depends on where, but yes, I mean, I wish I could.
And
radio is harder to show them.
Little pieces, little pieces of
I
northern.
can't tell you the streets, David.
Little pieces of northern are also
Yes,
not included.
yes.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
And also includes a sliver of Dallas County. Well, of Dallas, I should
Of
say.
Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be that the city of Dallas was the second largest city in Collin County.
Mm-hmm.
Just that sliver. But I think that's changed, certainly, with Plano, McKinney.
With Frisco growing as fast as it has been. One of the things in this redistricting trial is that Pete Sessions is trying to get his district moved further south into downtown Dallas. He'd like to have and take over all of Oak Lawn because, as he said in some paperwork that he filed, he can represent that area as well as the incumbent, who's Eddie Bernice Johnson, because she hasn't forged any alliances with any groups in the area. I can't even say it with a straight face, but
Your face is never straight.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But he feels that he has equally represented the gay community, even though he gets a 0 and she gets a 100 on HRCs. So if anything, if his district does end up sliding a little bit further south, you'd come into Dallas County some, which should help any Democrat.
Sure.
To some
Yeah.
extent. How do you prepare, not knowing exactly what your district is going to be, how do you prepare for this election?
In life, in business, and in this campaign, I will be no different in that I don't focus on things I have no control over. So my point is just trying to get in front of people and share what I'm about, what I would like to see as an elected official, and really more importantly than either of those things is listening to really what are the concerns of the community that I'm in, and finding a way to find some shared values and common ground, and try to get some communities bridging some of those gaps and bringing people together.
What are some of those values? What are some of the things that you want to bring into this campaign and make the issues? Because in certain ways, the candidates themselves can frame what some of the issues are.
Right.
Sometimes it's out of your control, but...
Right, absolutely, but this is entirely within my control, and that is, for me, I think a focus is too much on wanting to hear these high-level policy initiatives. Now, I'll talk about my position on any sort of policy and legislation all day long. To me, I think we're missing the boat, and we're not willing to try and see what's really preventing us from making inroads and turning things when we aren't getting back to the foundation of how our democracy is just not working. So it's great to talk about those things, but all the evidence you need that there's something about our system that's broken is we have 2 houses of Congress and the presidency under the same party, and they still can't get anything done. So this is a problem. It's not about just forcing policy issues. I think the place where you start is getting the community engaged and getting them empowered. And we're in this position where it's the self-fulfilling prophecy, back to the non-voter issue, is where the people in power only represent special interests and big money, so people feel disengaged, like their vote doesn't matter. So the people in power only represent special interests and big money, and it's just this self-fulfilling prophecy. We've created this whole system. So part of it is getting the folks out, realizing that we do actually ultimately have the voice. and we have the power, but we've got to show up. It's not enough to share things on social media. It's not enough to even march or rally. We've got to get out and get educated and vote and start making those numbers heard. And that is a huge centerpiece to what I would like to do. I really sincerely would rather see a 100% voter turnout, but not a single vote for me. If I can encourage that, then I would feel like I accomplished what I think we really need. And when we can start doing that and getting people more engaged and empowered, then we can start tackling the bigger issues that we need in healthcare, immigration, infrastructure, you name it.
What are some of the ways you're planning on getting voter turnout?
Free ice cream and puppies.
Well,
Winner.
My 8-year-old daughter will be there.
Yeah, awesome, great. So in 10 years, that'll really work out for me.
right, exactly.
See, here I thought you were running for Congress so you could get the health care.
Right.
You know, because they always set aside, except under the ACA, they always set aside, well, this is what it's going to apply to the country, but we're going to have this primo health care for for ourselves and our families. So, I figure maybe you're running for that.
That must be what it is.
Your policy on health care, we need to take a break in just a minute. Your policy on health care, repeal Obamacare, but save the ACA. In polls, that seems to work.
I know.
So,
we just got to get that guy's name off of it, and then we'd accept it. Right? No, absolutely not, David.
We're talking to Lorie Burch. She's running for U.S. Congress District 3, which is basically Collin County. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and we'll be back with more right after this.
Hi, this is Valletta Lil, and I listen to Lambda Weekly. I hope that you will too.
And welcome back to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. We're talking to Lorie Burch. She is running for Congress District 3. I just wanted to mention that Lerone and Patti and I went to a wedding yesterday, and it was a big church wedding. Patti, I'm looking at Lorie, and Patti, of course, true to her name, she walked down the aisle and arrived right behind the groom.
Well, what the funny part about it is, I didn't know if you were coming or not because I hadn't seen you, and that wedding started. I'm like, okay, maybe she's not coming. That's fine. And so then I see David lean over and he hit me, and he goes, "The late Patti Fink is late." I'm like, oh my God.
Well,
I thought you were joking at first.
No, why would I joke about it?
We did this very stealth thing. We came in and we sat in the very back row. And then everything was starting. So then, as soon as everybody moved forward down the aisles, we moved up to another row, and then we went, "Oh look, there's David and Lerone," and we ooched up another couple of rows so we could sit with you. So yeah,
okay.
I'm glad you
She
didn't
walked
notice.
down the aisle behind Todd. The other thing I do want to mention is that I thought the church was going to be hit by lightning or an earthquake because Lerone and family went up for communion. Now, understand, Lerone has asked me when I've said to him, "Are you going to take off next week?" He'll say, "What's next week?" And I'll say, "Christmas." And his response to that is usually, "What is that?" So, and I have to explain to him. So we were sitting there, those of us who did not go out for communion because, like, Jewish, we were sitting there going, "Oh God, don't let the roof cave in. Oh, please."
Not during this wedding, at least. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, we are talking to Lorie Burch. She is running for Congress, and I was perfect. I just attended the wedding. We're talking to Lorie Burch. She is running for Congress. We're joking about health care. What is your position on health care?
My position has really evolved through my experience more from a business standpoint in dealing with wills and powers of attorney, and I see the struggle that people, particularly our elderly and those who are disabled, go through trying to be able to balance how they're able to afford taking care of themselves. And then a lot of my clients are in that sandwich generation where they're trying to actually take care of their elderly parents, and then also trying to take care of their kids and pay for school, and from a financial standpoint, it's killing us. It's killing us. And I do, when I look at the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and see that one of our inalienable rights is the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it certainly tells me that healthcare is a fundamental human right. What the actual solution to that is, I'm not going to pretend that I know, because it's the antithesis of what I want to do, and that is really listen to people and their strategies and their ideas and try and find a solution that can be a path forward. I'm not going to pretend that I've got all the answers just in my own head. I am intrigued by universal health care. I will tell you, though, as a lawyer that has dealt a lot with bureaucracy and courts, my concern is there are things that government can do well, and there's things that government does very badly. And I would like to know more. I'd like the community and those that have expertise to inform me more to help shape that. I feel like the people I represent should be shaping those real solutions and paths forwards. But it's got to improve. It's got to be better. I don't repealing and replacing is ridiculous. But there's definitely improvement. And the more that we value the care that everybody has, the more that we can improve our economy, our workforce, our education. It just touches everything.
Well, Social Security and Medicare were not perfect when they first passed them, but what they did was they passed additional legislation to improve them and correct what they saw once it was working.
Absolutely.
To improve several of those things that were wrong.
And now Medicare is one of the most efficient, cost-effective programs ever run. The administration costs and the effectiveness of that administration is one of the best in the world. And what kills me, though, is when people talk about Medicare and single payer as if they're the same thing. If you've ever dealt with Medicare, you have to buy supplemental policies to cover things that Medicare does not cover. And so we are not talking about single payer. So when I hear lots of people on the left talk about single payer and then throw Medicare out there, I'm like, are you sure you know what you're talking about?
Probably not.
Do you even watch television? Because there's commercials for those supplemental policies.
But I can tell you one thing. I have a person-to-person comparison of one thing: ambulances. An ambulance in Dallas is going to cost you about $1,550. Whether
For
it's
one ride? One way?
to take Brian
Wow.
to Parkland across the street from our house, $1,550. His Medicare covered all but about $400 of it. Maybe it was $450. I was in an ambulance a week later, and my ambulance also was about the same cost. My Blue Cross covered $400. I have over $1,000 of it left, and I have a good Blue Cross policy. So, I mean, that's the comparison. Blue Cross might, or Medicare might not be perfect, but boy, I can't wait till I'm on it. I'll tell you that. One of my solutions is, if somebody over 60 is that expensive to insure, and my insurance is a fortune, it's over $1,000 a month. If my insurance is that expensive, then back Medicare back to 60. Medicare will get a group of customers who would be their healthiest group when you're going from 65 down to 60. Insurance would get rid of their most expensive group, which goes up to 65 right now, and then they'd only cover up to 60. It seems to be a win for both sides.
If only Ted Cruz would think that way. You know, I mean, like his amendment that proposes basically that if you're healthy, you stay in the healthy group, and if you're sick, you stay in the sick group, and therefore the premiums for the sick people get comprehensive ACA care with all of those required benefits, comprehensive benefits, and then the cheap no care things could be, you know, for healthy people could be better. But, you know, even the insurance industry has said this could never work. I mean, I do healthcare for a living, and two of the major groups that the industry speaks through says this will never work. There's no way to make that work because you're not even, you know, the whole idea is risk. And it's just going to make it unaffordable for everybody. And then the healthy people, when they do get sick, won't have any coverage because they didn't buy
Well,
it.
and the one side of it is the insurance and those costs, but just the insanity of what, to your point, Dave, what you're bringing up, that's one small example of just how much these things cost. My mom was recently in the hospital, and what, just one night in a hospital, that's insane. Like, I just, there's got to be a better path forward so that folks that I see are not having to decide whether where they can move their parent to get the care that they need, or move them in their own home, or are they going to have to sell their house, and then there's a look back period. And it's just, it makes, lawyers like me make money, but that's just more money that's being taken away from what they need to take care of themselves and be confronted with that. And then you've got the families that have the kids with disabilities and special needs, and they need these services. They need to be able to have reasonable access so they too can get through life and have the same opportunities. And it's very heartbreaking. We've got to find a solution and better paths forward. And I don't think throwing the baby out with the bathwater is the approach.
Well, starting over
we all
with
know
something new.
This is a political game.
Well, of course.
That's all it is.
Starting over with something new.
This isn't about health care.
Is ridiculous when we have something that is working, that we see that there are some problems with, but it is working. To just throw that out and, okay, let's go back 8 years and start over again with something else that we know is not going to work, that the Congressional Budget Office is saying is going to throw a whole lot of people off of insurance, and it's going to cost more. Let's stop pretending that's a solution to anything.
But see, right here is the core of why I'm running, is we can have these conversations all day long and talk about that. But the system of our democracy and how this works, and the people who actually have the power to pass and propose this legislation, they aren't working. They're being fed by their special interests and by their own different segments of their own political party, that folks like us that are doing real life, that are dealing with this on a daily basis, whether it's personally or in our families or even in the businesses that we run, we're left behind because they're truly not addressing what's going on here. And until we get more responsible representatives and more engagement from the community, we're not going to have a path forward to even be able to find these solutions. And people are more disillusioned and more disengaged, feeling powerless, because it's just a political football, and you only agree with somebody based on whether they have a D or an R after their name. That's where we are right now, and we have to accept that, and we've got to address that. We can't keep ignoring the elephant or the donkey in the room, right? Because that is what's crippling our ability to push forward and make changes.
I was very impressed this week, though, with the defeat of the Hartzell Amendment, and that comes back to our LGBT community.
Explain what that is.
The Hartzell Amendment was offered up by a GOP congresswoman as part of the military spending bill and our whole defense thing, which is an annual or biannual thing that they authorize. And so the Mad Dog Mattis, who's head of the Defense Department, objected to this bill, and as did every single Democrat, and 24 Republicans voted against it. And what's interesting about it is that it's about trans health care in the military. So that if you were a trans person in the military, you could have coverage for your care that's specific to you as a trans person covered. And so enough Republicans came over to defeat this because they knew that was the right thing to do.
Do you know who led that? And she deserves all kinds of credit. Is Ileana Russ-Leighton, who represents Miami and that part of South Florida. She's a Republican. She has a trans son, and she's been great on our issues. But I would imagine she's the one who spoke to a number of people that she thought she could peel away, and got them to just see reason. Veterans care and military health care should be about treating the person, not treating who you are. You don't qualify. You don't qualify for this because you just don't fit into the right category, but you need that. Yeah, but you don't fit into the right category. That's ridiculous for any kind of health care.
So the bill wanted to strip away all of their benefits,
yes,
or just trans benefits?
Just the trans benefits.
Wow.
But yes, any kind of health care that would be specific to a trans person, that would not be funded under their which in effect would make it impossible for a trans person to serve, which was the point of it.
Essentially, which is not unlike what's happening this week in Austin, which the special obsession, as I call it, starts on Tuesday.
That's excellent.
30 days.
I'm going. I'll be there Tuesday.
And that's what they want to do. They want to remove transgender people from public life. They don't want them to pee anywhere. They don't want them to have the right to pee anywhere. They want them to be under suspicion and are potentially arrested if they venture out into public life and use a public restroom. It's just shocking to me. And then trees, poor trees. You know, we're having a rally this afternoon from 4 to 7 over at Stone Tables at White Rock Lake. To help save our cities and our trees.
Lorie, are you for or against trees?
Well, as a birch, I am very much for trees.
Isn't it sad?
And any sort of shrubbery, really.
Isn't it sad that in Texas we would even have to ask?
I know.
Right.
I mean, where have we gotten to in some of our politics?
I want to say one thing about healthcare, particularly with trans issues. And in my practice, I have done a number of gender change and name change orders, and it has been such an eye-opening experience to be able to meet so many in the trans community. And just genuinely, whenever I'd have the hearings, they're always first thing in the morning downtown, and I'm coming from Plano, so I'm always grumpy in the morning, like, oh, I got to go downtown and drive the traffic, and oh, I don't want to do this. And every single time when I walk out, it's some of the most fulfilling experiences is to see somebody who is so appreciative, who you can see on their face feels like they are coming into who they truly are, and to learn some of the healthcare issues that are significant. I had a client who had to delay the court process because once the gender change went over, then it would change at work, and then he would lose his coverage to get a hysterectomy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, things I would never even think about. But let me say one other thing about being able to just really talk about those issues is not just so much from an LGBT, but from a woman's perspective. Mm-hmm. And when I have talked to so many of my trans clients who are trans men, talking about their experience in our world as a woman versus an experience in their world as a man, it gets me really angry. I hear about things, I can sort of speculate as some treatment that I've received, and then we can see the statistics from equal pay and educational opportunities, but you don't really know because I've only ever lived in this skin. And to hear some of these things, we really need more representation. And having been part of the National Women's Association, we need more visibility for women and more representation for women.
I loved Ruth Bader Ginsburg's comment about this when she was asked, when will there be enough women on the United States Supreme Court? She goes, 9, when there's 9. And people seem so shocked, and she said, no, there have been, decades, centuries of 9 men, mm-hmm. and no one ever asked a question. No one ever gasps, mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of with her,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nine's one will be enough.
Absolutely. Right. And we're still so unrepresented in so many segments, but particularly in elected office.
Yes.
And we can talk all day long about the importance of that, and it's great to have allies. It's great to have allies. But we need to be able to see people that we can personally identify with. It's not enough to have someone give you a voice. We need to have a voice. Mm-hmm. And that's really only by having more inclusion of people from all different segments of our community being able to be represented, because that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. And if we did it according to the statistics and demographics, Congress would be 51% female. Mm-hmm. And there wouldn't be these backroom deals where nobody knows what they're doing because it's all basically white guys, deciding what healthcare should be for women. Well, we're not going to fare well in that. Right. They don't have any concept of what it's like to be a woman.
Even if it was a room full of men who even meant well, without having a woman to just toss a question out to, how can you possibly be talking about equitable health care?
And that's how you get idiotic statements from, old white guys that say, well, I'm not having babies, so I don't want to have to pay for you having a baby. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, think of the things I don't want to pay on your body, dude.
Right.
You want to go there? Let's go there.
Well,
I do
remember,
not want to go there.
Patty, remember how when gay people didn't have any kids, and so we didn't have to pay school taxes?
Right.
Remember that back then? It's such a stupid argument. Well, it's such a stupid argument. Of course we want to pay our school taxes because, of course, we want to have educated people around us.
Right.
Yeah.
And do they not have wives or daughters, or I'm certain they probably had a mother that it probably affected.
You would
that.
think not.
That's so much at the core of something that we've lost is that we've lost this idea that we are to bring together, to be part of a society, to agree to this, is that we have to recognize that our futures are connected to the well-being of one another, and it doesn't have to personally affect you or benefit you, but you need to care about how other people are affected, because it does. I don't get paid minimum wage, but I get more clients if people have a living wage and they can come get their will done. Mm-hmm. So that's just a silly personal example. Well, not silly. I mean, having a living wage is a very serious issue.
And it's easier for you to write a will for somebody who has some education and can then take it, read it, and say, oh, no, let's make this that.
It's why injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Mm-hmm. That we will benefit better when we realize that we need to listen to other communities, other segments, other demographics, and the more we're all empowered, the more we have a seat at the table. It's not about pushing anybody away. It's about making that table bigger.
Lorie, thank you very much for being with us. I need to just make this announcement. Today, KNON is presenting its first ever community film festival. It is at the Texas Theater, 231 West Jefferson Boulevard in Oak Cliff. Individual movie tickets, day passes, and you can. It says they're available online. It starts at 4:45 today, so I'm assuming that you can get tickets just at the theater, but go to the website knon.org for more information. Next week we have the author who wrote the book about Mark and Vic, our marriage equality plaintiffs, and Mark and Vic will be here too.
Live in Plano.
They do.
Yes, they do.
We're doing Plano weeks in a row. It's it's so not like us, but we'll have Mark and Vic here. We're going to be merciless on them. We'll see you next week.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.